In our next program, we are going to learn about mathematical operator, variable, and user input. So I'm going to write a snippet and then I'll explain what it means. So let's say I create a variable int a equals to 5, int b equals to 6. I create another variable where I store the value of their sum, and then I print variable c, sum equals to c. So I'll compile this code and then I'll run it. Code is compiled. I'll run the code and we are getting sum is 11. So what is happening here is, at first we have created a variable a. So in our previous slides we have explained what a variable is. So variable is basically a unique identifier via which we can via which the program identifies a memory block. So we create an integer type of memory and name it as a and store 5 in it. So this operator is called assignment operator, and when here what it means is create a variable a and assign value 5 to it. Similarly, we create another integer variable b and assign value 6 to it. Now in the third statement, what we are doing is we are creating a variable c and assigning the value of sum of a and b to it, right? So c will store the sum a and b, which is 11. Now ultimately in this line what we are going to do is we are printing we are printing c, and as we can see we are also printing a message with it. So the whatever string message we are going to print, it is encapsulated within double quotes, and the various components of cout statement is basically appended with this operator. And so the first part prints sum equals to, and then this is how we print a variable. So now let's do another activity. Let's try to change the value, and let's say this is 5.5. So here what we are doing is basically we are trying to store a decimal value in a integer variable. So in our previous slides we have seen that int variable basically cannot store decimal value. So let's see what happens. So as we can see, we are getting a warning, and we are not getting any error, so we can still run our code. If you see the warning, it says that implicit conversion from double to int changes value 5.5 to 5. So basically what's happening is, since int variable cannot store decimal value, it is converting 5.5 to 5. So only the integral part of this constant is stored in a. So a will still store 5, not 5.5. So I'll run the code and then we'll see the output. So here we can see the sum is 11. Ideally 5.5 plus 6 is 11.5, but since a cannot store the decimal value, we are getting sum 11. Now let's do something else. So in case we want to store the decimal value, what we can do is we can change the data type from int to float. And since the sum is also decimal, we'll store float. Now let's try to compile this code. Compile. Now we can see that there are no errors and no warning. Since 5.5 can be stored in a float data type, we are getting no warnings. Let's run the code. So here the sum is 11.5. So in order to store a decimal value, we have to use the right data type, which is float or double. Here we have used float. In our future codes, we'll see how to use double also. Now in this snippet, what we are doing is we are not taking any input from the user. But if you see the real world scenario, there are many cases where we need to take some input from the user. So now what we'll do is, let's say we have to add two numbers, but the two numbers should be, and input it, like it should be taken via console and the user should input it. So what we'll use is enter two numbers. So let's print statements also. So let's say we prompt the user to enter the number. We'll say enter first number, and we'll use endl. Now let's move these float values above. And now since we are taking the input from user, we don't need the assignment operator. So let's just define it. So we are saying that, so in this statement, what we are doing is we are creating two memory blocks of type float, and we are printing a message saying, prompting user to enter the number. Then we'll use cin. So cin basically is used to input the number from user. We'll say input A. So then we'll prompt another message. We'll say enter second number, endl, and then we'll input the second variable. So now let's try to compile and run this code and see how it works. Compile, 0 errors and warning, and then run. So here we get a message, enter the first number. Now let's enter 5.5 like we did before. So what happens is, as soon as we entered 5.5, this statement is getting executed, where we enter a number and the value of A is initialized as 5.5. Now so now we have another message, enter second number. So we'll enter the second number, let's say 6. So the value of B is also initialized as 6, and the rest of the code works as before. The sum is printed as 5.5. So 11.5, sorry. So now we have learned how to take input from user. Let's learn about one more operator, which is the modulus operator. I've also highlighted this operator before when we were discussing about character set. So the reason we are focusing a lot on mod operator is because it is used widely when you give your interviews, like on various coding platform like HackerRank. So I'll explain a little bit about it. Let's terminate it. So for example, like let's define two integer variable, int x equals to 5 and int y equals to 3. Third variable will store the modulus operator. Let's try to print it. Now if we try to compile this code, compiles well, then we'll go and run it. So it's going to prompt us for numbers. Let's enter any number, 3, sum is 6. Now this is what we are getting from the modulus operation. So this mod operator, what it does is it basically prints the remainder. So 5 modulus 3. So when we divide 5 by 3, the remainder that we get is 2. So that's what we are printing here in our terminal. So we can see that the remainder is 2. So just keep this mod operator in your mind. We are going to use it in the future.